The cold, stunning woman's words had barely fallen when a black-clad figure, rushing through the void, appeared right in front of her. The man, gazing at the tall beauty before him, couldn't help but lick his lips and praise her. He had to admit, even in the entire Great Thousand Worlds, this woman's beauty was truly exceptional. "Hand over the boundless mirror," the man in black said with a grin. "I don't like hitting women, especially someone of your caliber." The cold beauty gave him a glance, completely ignoring his words. Boom. Her indifference made the black-clad man's face flush with rage. He took a step forward, unleashing an overwhelming wave of spiritual power that surged like a massive tide, crashing toward the woman. You've just broken through to second grade supreme, and yet you dare look at me like this? Do you not realize how vast the gap is between a second grade supreme and a ninth grade supreme? The black-clad man shouted, and his enormous spiritual tidal wave shattered space itself as it barreled toward the cold beauty. Boom. At that moment, a terrifying tremor shook the earth beneath. A vast, seemingly endless crack appeared in the ground, stretching from the distance, and within moments, the land was torn asunder. The sudden change startled the dozen or so black-clad men. As they looked toward the enormous rift, their pupils contracted in shock. From the endless crack emerged an enormous, dark gold figure, its form stretching high into the sky. It was a colossal dark gold serpent, nearly 100,000 feet long. The serpent soared upward, appearing in front of the spiritual power tide. Its massive body shredded the tide into pieces, and as the fragments of spiritual energy scattered in the air, the serpent's body began to glow with dazzling dark gold light. As the light faded, a young man dressed in dark gold robes materialized in the air. He looked at the group of black-clad men ahead, and a cold smirk spread across his face. The terrifying aura he emitted caused the black-clad men to freeze in their tracks. Is a ninth grade supreme really that impressive? Defying Supreme. The leader of the black-clad men gasped, his face paling as he felt the oppressive, overwhelming aura descend from the young man in dark gold robes. The entire world seemed to grow heavy under its weight. This youth was no ordinary figure. He was a divine supreme, a towering powerhouse in the Great Thousand Worlds. Who are you? Please, we beg you not to interfere with matters of my divine void palace. The black-clad man stammered, his face showing signs of fear. He understood that if this youth held any murderous intent, they would have no choice but to flee. Oh, Divine Void Palace? Is that the so-called Heavenly Void Palace from the Central Heaven Realm? The young man in dark gold robes stood with his hands behind his back, looking down at the black-clad man. His previously mocking expression turned icy. These people wanted to use the Heavenly Void Palace to suppress him? That's right. You must know that the Palace Master of the Divine Void Palace is a Divine Supreme. So, the black-clad man began, trying to assert his authority. Boom. Before he could finish, a terrifying burst of energy erupted from the young man in dark gold robes. The immense spiritual power flooded out, making the entire world tremble. Go on then. Keep using your Divine Supreme Palace Master to intimidate me. The young man in dark gold robes tilted his head and sneered at the black-clad man. Then, his mind shifted, and slowly, he extended a fair hand. A soft light appeared in his palm, forming a jade mirror the size of a hand. This boundless mirror you wanted, is this what you're looking for? The young man casually played with the jade mirror, glancing at the black-clad man with a smile. His words, mocking both the Divine Void Palace and the boundless mirror, enraged the black-clad man, making his face turn crimson. First, the name of their palace was changed in a mocking tone, and then the boundless mirror was ridiculed. It felt as though he was being slapped in the face right in front of them. But no matter how furious he felt inside, he knew he stood no chance against this young man. Yes, this is the boundless mirror. This woman stole it from my Divine Void Palace a few days ago. It's a real divine artifact, the man in black said, suppressing his anger. All right, it's just a broken mirror. I'll give it back to you. The young man in the dark golden robe impatiently tossed the jade mirror to the man in black. Seeing that the other side didn't make things difficult for him and actually returned the item, the man in black and the dozen or so black-clad individuals behind him couldn't help but feel a rush of joy. Boom. However, just as the jade mirror was about to fall into the man in black's hands, cracks silently appeared all over the mirror. Then, to the horrified expressions of the man in black and his companions, the mirror exploded, shattering into countless fragments that shot outward. Huh? Did I throw it too hard? The young man in the dark golden robe was surprised to see the mirror explode, but his expression showed no real concern. A sense of madness surged in the hearts of the dozen or so men, but just as they were about to team up to fight the young man in the dark golden robe, they saw him give an embarrassed smile. Another jade mirror then appeared in his hand, and he stuck out his tongue at them in a cute manner. Sorry, that wasn't the real one. I just wanted to scare you. Damn it. Retreat. The furious shout from the man in black echoed through the air, shaking the very space itself. He realized that this young man in the dark golden robe was deliberately provoking them. His repeated taunts were the clearest proof. They didn't believe they could beat him, so their first instinct was to flee. Whoosh! The man in black took the lead, stepping forward and tearing open a massive spatial rift with both hands. The rift stretched toward the young man in the dark golden robe, while he quickly retreated. Cling! A series of slender beams of light extended and intertwined behind him, and an intricate formation was immediately set up. It was a teleportation array. Run! The man in black shouted again, and his figure disappeared into the teleportation array. One after another, the other figures followed him in, vanishing into thin air. But no matter how frantic they were, the young man in the dark golden robe simply stood in the distance, expressionless, watching the figures fleeing madly, showing no intention of stopping them. Whoosh! A graceful figure appeared beside the young man in the dark golden robe. It was the cold and alluring woman from earlier. She looked at the retreating figures and asked the young man, "Why didn't you stop them and kill them? What's the point of killing them?" The young man in the dark golden robe smiled lightly, watching the teleportation array fade as the figures disappeared. He then tossed the jade mirror to the cold woman. "You've been up to something these days, haven't you? Turns out you ventured into the Divine Void Palace just to get this?" The young man looked at the cold woman. The woman nodded in response. The Boundless Mirror is one of the 8 great palace-defending divine artifacts of the Divine Void Palace. It has the power to observe everything within a radius of 30 million miles. "I guess you want to find that Xiao Yan, right?" The young man said. "How do you know about Xiao Yan?" The woman was shocked at the mention of the name. "Heh, when I saved you last month, you were unconscious. You kept mumbling either Xiao Yan or Flame Emperor," the young man replied. "I guess Flame Emperor is Xiao Yan's title, right?" "Flame Emperor is Xiao Yan." The woman nodded, not saying much more. "So next, you plan to use the Boundless Mirror to find him, and then go look for him, right?" the young man asked. "I think he's probably looking for us too," the woman replied. "We? What do you mean? Does he have other women?" The young man raised an eyebrow at her words. "If he has that ability, are you dissatisfied?" The woman shot him a glance. "Heh, well, that's your business." The young man smiled indifferently, then looked at the woman's face and smiled again. "My name is Tong Hiyuan Yun, just a traveler of the Great Thousand Worlds." The woman heard this, clicked her tongue, and with a swift turn, she was the first to walk off into the distance, leaving behind a faint voice for the young man in the long robe. Colorful Scales, the name he gave. As soon as Xiao Yan's words fell, a terrifying aura, as overwhelming as a storm, erupted from Luo Zhuqian's body. Accompanied by a massive ice phoenix soaring into the sky, an incredible spiritual power swept outward, and a vast expanse of silver-white energy spread across the surrounding mountains. In the sky above, the thousands of meters tall ice phoenix soared, its overwhelming icy aura cooling down the temperature of the previously hot mountains. Luo Zhuqian's cold voice echoed loudly. "Are you sure you want to take my full-force strike?" Xiao Yan looked at the terrifying aura sweeping from Luo Zhuqian's body, his expression slightly tightening. Luo Zhuqian, in this Great Thousand World, was perhaps the strongest individual Xiao Yan had ever seen. second only to Luo Heavenly God. Even Liu Beidao seemed to be weaker by a bit. However, there was no turning back for Xiao now. He stepped forward, and an immense surge of fiery, spiritual energy burst from his body, madness flashing across his face. Boom! As the raging flames poured out, Xiao body rapidly expanded, and the temperature that had dropped due to Luo Jutian's ice phoenix began to rise once more. Under the crimson sky, a massive fiery form, thousands of meters tall, appeared before everyone. It was Xiao flame emperor body, and his voice also rang out after Luo Jutian finished speaking. Sure. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A series of whooshing sounds pierced through the air, as the massive disturbance in the heart of the mountains caused the entire range to tremble. Even the patrolling guards turned their gazes toward the center of the mountains. In the midst of the chaos, a towering figure of flame, thousands of meters tall, marched forward with earth-shattering steps. The searing heat radiating from it burned the space around, causing many to flinch in discomfort. Is that the supreme Dharmakaya? To transform one's body into a Dharmakaya? I've never heard of such a supreme Dharmakaya. In the distance, some figures floated in the air, clearly not like the regular patrolling guards. Their auras were at the supreme level, indicating their high status in the Luo God Great Camp. However, as they looked at the enormous fiery form standing on the mountain peak, they couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. The Supreme Dharmakaya in the Great Thousand World is typically formed by supreme powerhouses condensing their spiritual energy, not by transforming one's own flesh. Yet, the fluctuations coming from the fiery form before them were identical to a Supreme Dharmakaya. A Dharmakaya formed from the physical body. This was unheard of. Howl. Before the massive fiery form, a shadow of an ice phoenix shot into the sky. With a long howl, the extreme chill of icy white energy spread, cooling down the terrifying heat emitted by the fiery form. Fire and ice. The two massive figures were about to clash. Liu Beidao and Gu Luoshan also flew out from the mountain peak, stopping in the void several thousand meters away. They stared at the two figures on the peak, with Liu Beidao feeling a twinge of worry in his heart. He had dealt with Luo Jutian for quite some time and knew the latter's strength well. Anyone who could withstand the Blood God Camp for this long couldn't be a simple figure. And now, even though Xiao had the strength of a 6th grade supreme, it was still unlikely he could block Luo Jutian's full-force strike. Boom. Before the two overwhelming energies even collided, the mountains beneath their feet could no longer withstand the pressure of the terrifying spiritual power and began to collapse. As the peaks crumbled, Xiao and Luo Jutian faced each other in the void, standing off. I admit, you young ones from the lower dimensions have courage, but the Great Thousand World is far beyond what the lower dimensions can compare to. If you trained for another 10 or 8 years, I might have to reconsider whether I could withstand your strike. But with your current strength, it's a pipe dream to withstand my full-force strike. You still have time to regret it. Luo Jutian's expression grew serious as he looked at Xiao. Although he was surprised by Xiao physical transformation into a Dharmakaya, he still didn't believe Xiao could survive his full-force strike. Heh, Senior Luo Jutian, feel free to unleash your full strength. No matter the outcome, it won't fall under your responsibility. If I fail to withstand your attack, it simply means my skills are inferior. There's no point in complaining, Xiao replied with a faint smile after hearing Luo Jutian's words. Despite his calm demeanor, Xiao was acutely aware of the enormous challenge he was about to face. Luo Jutian was right. The Great Thousand Worlds was nothing like the lower dimension. Back in the continent of Doqi, he, Xiao, the Flame Emperor, was an unrivaled existence. But here, his current strength was unremarkable at best. Even so, Xiao thrived on rising above mediocrity. His path to becoming a true powerhouse had always been forged through adversity. Very well. Luo Jutian nodded approvingly. The next moment, the calm expression on his face shifted as a manic intensity surged forth. His voice thundered across the heavens. Brace yourself. Boom. As Luo Jutian's roar echoed, the colossal ice phoenix soaring across the sky flapped its wings, unleashing an overwhelming torrent of icy winds and snow. The scorching mountain range below was instantly transformed into a frozen wasteland. The only incongruity in this frozen expanse was the fiery figure striding unyieldingly, exuding an intense heat that the icy storm could not penetrate within a 100-foot radius. The flames composing the fiery form were nothing short of domineering. You may have just arrived from the lower dimension and might not know this, but the Great Thousand Worlds is home to numerous heavenly rankings. The 100 Million Flames ranking is merely one among many. There are rankings for flames, such as the 100 Million Flames ranking, for spiritual beasts, the Heaven and Earth Myriad Beasts record, and for thunder, the Great Thousand Heavenly Thunder Codex. Similarly, the powers of ice and snow are recorded in the extreme cold heavenly rankings, Luo Jiutian explained, his voice resonating as the massive ice phoenix loomed behind him. The power I wield comes from the extreme cold heavenly rankings, ranked 89th, the Heavenly Phoenix Ice. The extreme cold heavenly rankings, Xiao murmured, momentarily taken aback. He hadn't expected even the powers of ice and snow to have their own rankings. His thoughts flickered back to the void thunder realm of the primordial ancient dragon clan in the continent of Do-Chi. The 9 profound golden thunder. Where would it rank in the Great Thousand Heavenly Thunder Codex Luo Jiutian mentioned? Phoenix Feather Seal. Before Xiao Yin could delve deeper into his musings, Luo Jiutian's low shout shattered his thoughts. With his command, the icy spiritual energy that blanketed the heavens erupted in violent chaos, surging toward the ice phoenix behind him. Clink! A brilliant white light emanated from the ice phoenix, imbued with an unbearable cold that seemed to freeze space itself. The light condensed into a massive white feather, 1,000 feet long. The feather appeared unassuming, devoid of ostentatious energy waves, but to the discerning eye, its tranquility concealed a devastating, world-ending force. It was with this very technique that Luo Jiutian had once slain a 7th-grade supreme. Heavenly Flame Plaza. As Luo Jiutian's icy phoenix unleashed its power, another voice roared across the heavens. The fiery figure stepped forward, its form shuddering as radiant white flames erupted from its body. In the skies above, a colossal plaza materialized, spanning tens of thousands of feet. 22 immense stone pillars adorned the plaza, each holding a flame radiating with terrifying heat. This was one of Xiao Yan's strongest techniques, the Heavenly Flame Plaza. Facing Luo Jiutian's all-out attack, Xiao Yan dared not hold back. He knew well that in a battle of this magnitude, even a moment's negligence could lead to his demise. Thus, he immediately unleashed his full strength. The appearance of the Heavenly Flame Plaza ignited an inferno that consumed half the sky, rapidly melting the icy frost blanketing the mountains. From the plaza's 22 stone pillars, flames coalesced at an astonishing speed, forming a fiery ruler thousands of feet long. The ancient ruler of heavenly flames. Clink! From above, the 1,000-foot ice feather descended gently toward Xiao Yan, exuding a terrifying pressure. The crimson fire ruler and the ice snow wings collided with a thunderous impact, yet there was no explosive sound. The entire world seemed to fall into an ancient silence. Luo Jiutian, standing ahead, wore a solemn expression, eager to see if the confident Xiao Yan could withstand his full-force strike. Crack! In the stillness, the sound of something shattering suddenly rang out. All eyes focused on the point of collision, where the crimson fire ruler and the ice snow wings met. From this point, vast, pitch-black cracks began to spread rapidly, tearing through the space. Boom! With a loud shattering noise, everyone watched in horror as the space surrounding the massive fire ruler and ice snow wings, spanning tens of thousands of feet, collapsed into nothingness. The void, dark and chilling, filled the sky, and countless cracks spread over the wings and ruler, engulfing them in an eerie blackness. Boom! The two enormous objects shattered, disintegrating into countless shards of spiritual power that scattered across the heavens and earth. Only the massive, boundless void, which seemed to blot out the sun, remained as proof of the terrifying impact. As expected, the world belongs to the youth. Luo Jiutian suddenly burst into a hearty laugh. He turned his gaze toward Xiao Yan, offering a casual smile. Thank you for your guidance, Senior. As the crimson fire ruler shattered, the heavenly flame plaza, suspended in the air, rapidly contracted and merged into the body of the Flame Emperor. His towering fire-scorched form shrank quickly, revealing Xiao Yan's slender figure once more. He bowed respectfully to Luo Jiutian. Not far away, Liu Beidao and Gu Luoshan, watching from below, were also filled with shock. Clearly, they hadn't expected Xiao Yan to withstand Luo Jiutian's full-force strike. They asked themselves if they would have been able to avoid such an attack, let alone endure it. Xiao Yan's bow did not escape Luo Jiutian's notice, and the latter smiled lightly before sweeping his gaze across the surroundings. A mighty voice reverberated across the land, shaking the mountains. All elders who have reached the supreme stage, come forth to discuss the final battle against the Blood God Great Camp. After two supreme powerhouses were crushed, their divine souls frantically fled toward the depths of the mountains, while the massive spiritual waves they left behind devoured a 1,000-mile radius around the mountains. That area, now devoid of life, had fallen into utter desolation. Boom! The colossal spiritual waves engulfed the outer mountains, then swept further into the depths, causing a terrifying tremor that shook the entire range. Luo Jiutian and the others turned their gaze toward the heart of the mountains. Beyond 1,000 miles, countless mountain peaks trembled as pillars of light shot into the sky. From these columns emerged dozens of figures, stepping out in unison. Boom! As dozens of auras erupted, it became clear that they had all reached the supreme level. There were more than 30 of them, surpassing Luo Jiutian's earlier estimate of 28. Some of these figures still had unstable fluctuations in their auras, indicating they had only recently reached the supreme stage. Among the emerging supreme powerhouses, 5 figures stepped forward. They simultaneously unleashed their spiritual power, summoning a colossal spiritual wave that spanned tens of thousands of feet. The magnitude of the energy was equal to the previous wave unleashed by Luo Jiutian himself. The two immense waves collided in the mountains, shaking the heavens with an earth-shattering roar that made the entire world tremble. The shockwaves obliterated half of the mountain peaks, creating a scene of overwhelming visual impact. Luo Jiutian, so you're declaring a final battle? And attacking without any warning? That's not like you. A figure appeared a distance away from Luo Jiutian and his group. It was a yellow-robed elder with a face twisted in anger. His aura was so powerful that it emanated a peak 6th grade supreme level, and if he seized the right opportunity, he might even break through to 7th grade supreme. Vice Commander Wang, do you think I still have a style? Luo Jiutian replied indifferently, hands clasped behind his back as he gazed at the yellow-robed elder with a faint smile. Are you not afraid that once you arrive, you won't be able to leave? For all these years, the Luo God clan has tried to drive us out, yet they've always failed. Do you really think you can succeed today? Old man, I didn't come here today to drive you all out. Upon hearing Vice Commander Wang's words, Luo Jiutian didn't feel embarrassed. Instead, he smiled again, and a clear, hearty laugh echoed through the air. The purpose of today is to make sure none of you escape. Haha, Luo Jiutian, you traveled all the way here just to tell me this joke? You're really... Vice Commander Wang laughed loudly upon hearing Luo Jiutian's words, but his words were cut short halfway. His gaze shifted to the outer perimeter of the mountain range, and his pupils suddenly contracted. What is that? A voice of astonishment escaped from Vice Commander Wang's mouth as he witnessed an unprecedented sight before him. Whoosh! A tremendous blaze erupted from the mountain's outer edge, forming a massive fire curtain that completely enveloped the mountain range. A terrifying wave of intense heat descended upon the entire area. Swish! Through the blazing fire curtain, a thin figure in black robes pierced through, followed by a fire lotus the size of a man that was composed of the fusion of dozens of flames. A destructive, earth-shattering wave of energy swept outward. Xiao Yan's figure, with the 17 flames fused into the Buddha Fury Fire Lotus, pierced through the void and arrived at the central palace of the mountain range. The destructive fire lotus, like a meteor, descended upon the massive palace. Not good. They're going after the first commander. From outside the horizon, the supreme-level warriors of the Blood God Great Camp saw the figure in black robes shoot through the distant fire curtain, their faces changing drastically. But before they could act to stop Xiao, the fire lotus had already soared across the sky, descending upon the massive palace below. Boom! As a cruel smile spread across Xiaoyan's face, a thunderous explosion reverberated through the heavens and earth. With Luo Jiutian's voice still echoing, the surrounding air was filled with the sound of breaking air as figures appeared one by one. These individuals held high positions in the Luo God Great Camp, each one of them a supreme-level powerhouse. They had been drawn out by the earlier commotion and had witnessed Xiao block Luo Jiutian's full-force attack. The shock left them speechless. As the collapsed void slowly closed up, the dim sky reappeared before everyone's eyes. Liu Beidao's figure flashed beside Xiao, and he looked at the latter with a gaze full of approval. This reminded him of the time in Western Dao City when the Manor Lord of Tianzhuang was present. Perhaps that day, he wouldn't have needed to act. The Manor Lord would have been defeated by this young man before him. It seemed he had overestimated himself. Heh, I truly feel embarrassed for my grandson Liu Tianhuang, Liu Beidao said with a faint smile as he looked at Xiao. Liu Tianhuang, his grandson, was talented, and his strength had already reached a high level in the Luo God Grand Domain. His divine soul tribulation ability could even be considered top-tier among the thousands of continents in this region. However, Xiao before him had already reached the level of a 6th grade supreme and had just blocked an all-out attack from a 7th grade supreme. This was far beyond the level of someone like Liu Tianhuang. I was just lucky, Xiao shrugged helplessly in response, then turned his gaze toward the surroundings. He could hear the sounds of breaking air approaching, and around 20 figures had gathered in front of Luo Jiutian. Each of these individuals was undoubtedly a supreme-level powerhouse, which meant that the Luo God Great Camp had over 20 supreme-level combatants. Based on logic, the Blood God Great Camp was likely to have a similar level of strength. Haha, where did this powerhouse come from? Such terrifying strength. A burly man with the strength of a 4th grade supreme laughed loudly as he looked at Xiao. Did he just join the camp? Haha, it seems like we can finally have a good fight with those Blood God clan bastards, said another man, a 3rd grade supreme, carrying a large sword on his back. That aura, he must be from a lower dimension, right? This is terrifying. When did the lower dimensions start producing powerhouses of this level? A recently ascended supreme-level man commented. The Blood God clan has been getting more and more reckless under Huang Yunpa's command. It's time to wipe them out. Now that the strength of the Great Camp has surged, Commander, what is your decision? The last of the 6th grade Supreme Elders in gray looked at Luo Jiutian and spoke, while the others also turned their gazes toward him, waiting for his next decision. Luo Jiutian smiled faintly, his eyes sweeping over the many Supreme-level experts filled with battle intent, and said, The Blood God Great Camp is indeed a dangerous tumor. Removing it as soon as possible would undoubtedly be beneficial, not just for us, but for the border continents as well. Senior Luo Jiutian, may I ask what kind of combat power the Blood God Great Camp has? Xiao stepped forward and asked Luo Jiutian. The Blood God Great Camp is located 1,000,000 miles to the west, in the western Nether Mountain Range. Centered around there, an area of nearly 400,000 miles has long been occupied by them, Luo Jiutian replied, speaking primarily to Xiao, as everyone else already knew this information. Only Xiao was in the dark. At the forefront of the Blood God Great Camp is, of course, Huang Yunpa, whose strength has reached the peak of the 7th grade Supreme, and he's even starting to approach the 8th grade Supreme. If he succeeds in advancing further, it will be a disaster for us. Apart from Huang Yunpa, there are 2 other 6th grade Supremes, whom Gu Luoshan and Elder Song have been holding off on the battlefield. Luo Jiutian pointed to the gray-clad elder who had spoken earlier and said to Xiao. Additionally, the Blood God Great Camp has 25 other Supreme-level experts, 4 5th grade Supremes, 7 4th grade Supremes, 6 3rd grade Supremes, and the remaining 8 are 1st and 2nd grade Supremes. Compared to us, their forces are slightly stronger, but thanks to the advantage of the terrain, we have been able to keep them in check, Luo Jiutian continued. Indeed, the Luo God Great Camp had only 22 Supremes, 6 fewer than the enemy. Luo Zetian turned his gaze to Xiao Yin. So, what do you think? If we go into full-scale battle, do you think you can handle the remaining 6 supreme experts from the Blood God camp? The other supreme experts also turned their eyes toward Xiao Yin. Having just arrived, Xiao Yin was still unfamiliar with everything here. They couldn't possibly throw him straight into a battle with Huang Yunpe. While Xiao Yin might not necessarily lose, the 2 strongest 6th grade supremes, apart from Huang Yunpe, would be better handled by Gu Luoshan and Elder Song as per the original plan. This battle might not end in one round, so perhaps at the final confrontation, Xiao Yin could team up with Luo Zetian, greatly increasing their chances of defeating Huang Yunpe. Just as everyone waited for Xiao Yan's response, he slowly walked toward Luo Zetian. Senior, do you remember what I said earlier? Everyone looked on in surprise. What could this young man have said to Luo Zetian earlier? I know, you promised Liu Beidao that you'd bring Huang Yunpe's head, but you may be overestimating him. In the end, it will still be up to both of us to eliminate him, Luo Zetian said, watching Xiao Yin approach. Would it be possible to hear my opinion? Xiao Yin asked. Go ahead, Luo Zetian replied, clasping his hands behind his back as he looked at Xiao Yin. Xiao Yin stepped in front of Luo Zetian, then slowly turned to face the dozens of supreme experts in front of him. He raised his hand, and immediately, a series of flames, each a different color, flew out from his body. To everyone's astonishment, the flames morphed into figures, each one radiating an aura comparable to that of a supreme-level expert. There were 22 flames in total, each transforming into a supreme figure. Fire. The spirit of flames? Isn't this something only the flames from the 100 million flames ranking can achieve? An astonished voice came from Gu Luoshan. And then, Xiao Yan's words left everyone stunned. If you trust me, I will handle Huang Yunpe, the 2 other 6th grade supremes, and the 4 5th grade supremes. As for the remaining 21 supremes, you can handle them as you wish. Several days later, tens of thousands of miles away from the Luo God Great Camp, this was a desolate land resembling a chaotic battlefield, with shattered ground covered in large, jagged stones. Craters were scattered everywhere. The wind howled across the vast terrain, kicking up clouds of dust, while the heavens and earth seemed eerily silent. A sudden sound of something tearing through the air broke the stillness between heaven and earth. In the distant horizon, a frantic light streak emerged, a figure moving at an astonishing speed, piercing through the void as he rushed toward the far end of the sky. It was a man in gray robes, his face betraying a rare expression of panic. He glanced back over his shoulder, as if trying to confirm something. Yet, when his gaze swept behind him, his pupils abruptly contracted. Looking for me? A voice, tinged with a trace of mockery, suddenly sounded in the gray-robed man's ear. The voice sent a chill through his heart. Before he could react, a hand emerged from the void behind him and clamped down on his shoulder. A man in white robes materialized from the empty space. The gray-robed man immediately attempted to resist, but before he could act, the hand on his shoulder flipped and slammed down hard. Boom! A surge of boundless spiritual energy smashed the gray-robed man into the ground below. The terrifying force embedded him deep into the earth, causing the surrounding land for thousands of meters to collapse like tofu. Heh! This is the price of opposing my Blood God clan. Hovering in midair, the white-robed man glanced at the shattered earth below. In the center of a deep crater, a bloodied figure could faintly be seen. Huh. Your Blood God clan has repeatedly invaded the territory of my Luo God clan. One day, the Luo God clan will personally eradicate every last one of you. Blood poured continuously from the gray-robed man's mouth as he lay in the massive crater. Staring up at the sky, he suddenly laughed. He was the leader of a sect situated on the border of the Western Dao continent, but now his sect had been utterly destroyed by the Blood God clan's invasion. Countless disciples were displaced. Under his command, however, most had scattered and managed to escape into the Great Thousand Worlds. As for him, he had fled from the ruins of his sect, only to be discovered and relentlessly hunted down by the Blood God clan. Excellent timing. Just as despair began to overtake the gray-robed man, A hearty laugh rang out, momentarily stunning him. He trembled slightly, his expression shifting in disbelief. Before him, without his notice, an elderly man in gray robes had appeared. The elder stood with his hands clasped behind his back, a smile on his face as he gazed at the gray-robed man. In the sky above, the white-robed man looked down at the elder, who had somehow appeared unnoticed. A jolt ran through his heart. Who was this old man? How could I have missed his presence? Before he could process his shock, the gray-robed elder slowly turned around and lifted his head to look up at him. Second grade supreme? A subordinate of Huang Yunpa? The elder's calm voice carried upward. You old fool. Who do you think you are, daring to speak the name of our sect master so casually? The white-robed man barked, his face darkening with anger. Huh, and who do you think you are, calling our first commander an old fool? A hearty, mocking voice echoed throughout the heavens before the white-robed man could finish his outburst. Boom! A massive fist abruptly punched out from the void behind the white-robed man. Before he could react, the devastating power of the strike engulfed him, sending him crashing into the ground below. The earth trembled violently as another section of the terrain collapsed. You? Who are you people? I am a seated elder of the blood god Great Camp. You can't just... The white-robed man coughed blood as he staggered out from the rubble, his disheveled figure trembling. Looking up at the sky, his pupils suddenly shrank to pinpoints. From the void above, figures began to step forward one after another. Each emanated an overwhelming aura that rippled through the heavens, suffocating the air itself. The terrifying energy made the white-robed man freeze in fear. Huh, what's wrong with you Blood God clan members? Do you all have terrible memories, or are you just new recruits? How can you not recognize our first commander? A burly man among the newcomers sneered as he glanced down at the white-robed man. First commander? The white-robed man's expression twisted in horror as realization dawned upon him. His trembling gaze shifted toward the gray-robed elder standing in the other crater. His voice, filled with disbelief and dread, trembled as he spoke. The terrifying explosion of the fire lotus caused the surrounding space, stretching thousands of feet in size, to twist violently. The overwhelming waves of fire devoured everything in its path, transforming a 1,000-mile radius into an inferno, even scorching the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. After the flames subsided, the massive black temple that had once stood on the mountain was gone. What appeared before everyone was a colossal pit, thousands of feet wide, with bottomless darkness that sent chills down their spines. Outside the massive pit, Xiao stood in midair, surrounded by 22 swirling strange flames. Yet, his expression remained indifferent as he gazed down at the abyss. His calm voice echoed into the dark chasm below. Come out. This attack won't harm you. Buzz. As Xiao voice fell, a blood-red glow began to emanate from the bottom of the black pit. Soon, a figure dressed in white slowly rose, hands clasped behind his back, a sinister smile on his face as he stared at Xiao. His eyes, locked on Xiao, gleamed with a blood-red light. Xiao recognized him at once. This man was likely Huang Yunpa. From the lower dimension. Huh? How interesting, Huang Yunpa remarked with a faint tone, staring at Xiao. Shoo, shoo, shoo. Figures sliced through the air and appeared behind Huang Yunpa. These were the 30 or so supreme experts from the Blood God Great Camp. However, Huang Yunpa was somewhat surprised. Despite facing so many supreme experts, this young man from the lower dimension showed no signs of retreat or fear. With the strength of a 6th grade supreme, you might be invincible in your dimension, but such arrogance won't serve you well in the Great Thousand Worlds, Huang Yunpa said, his gaze still fixed on Xiao. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As Huang Yunpa's words dropped, a series of whooshing sounds rang out behind Xiao. Soon, Luo Jiutian and over 20 other supreme experts appeared, standing firmly behind Xiao. Huang Yunpa, don't you think it's time we settle the old scores? Luo Jiutian stepped forward, his cold voice carrying over to Huang Yunpa and his group. You've brought a breakthrough shackled individual from a lower dimension? Is this your foundation for reckoning with me? Huang Yunpa sneered at Luo Jiutian and the others. Boom. With Huang Yunpa's mocking words, a figure behind him shot forward. A powerful aura, on par with a 6th grade supreme, erupted. The figure pierced through the air and arrived before the indifferent Xiao. With a vicious smile, he unleashed a massive punch filled with overwhelming spiritual energy aimed straight at Xiao. Find a good place to hide and cultivate. Maybe after 100 or 1,000 years, you'll be at a level to look down on us. But right now, you truly don't know the meaning of death. The figure sneered as his giant fist descended. However, to his surprise, Xiao didn't even glance at him, his hands casually resting behind his back. Ding! Just as the powerful punch was about to strike Xiao, a dazzling burst of fire erupted from the man's chest. His eyes widened in shock. A fire lotus with 18 colors had appeared in front of his chest, radiating an aura of destruction that sent chills through him. Even Huang Yunpa, standing not far away, felt the devastating aura. Before he could react, a deafening explosion shook the world. Boom! The 18-colored fire lotus, bursting into a glorious brilliance, caused the space to collapse as Xiao remained expressionless. Terrifying shockwaves tore through the air, and deep black cracks spread out. Gee! In the midst of the inferno, a figure, nearly charred beyond recognition, shot out like a bird with broken wings, crashing into the earth below. The ground for miles around collapsed, and the figure lying within was unrecognizable, likely dead. A 6th grade supreme, on par with Xiao, was instantly obliterated. The dozens of supreme experts behind Huang Yunpa gasped, their faces twitching in disbelief. This was the reinforcements that Luo Jiutian had called for? No wonder they dared to charge in. Heh, Huang Yunpa, how do you like my foundation? However, not only did Huang Yunpa show no intention of retreating, but he also smirked mockingly. If this is all you've got, then I'm afraid I'm about to show you despair. Huang Yunpa's words caused Luo Jiutian and the others to tense up, as if they were trying to decipher the true meaning behind his statement. Just then, a wave of energy fluctuation burst forth from Huang Yunpa's body, shaking the hearts of everyone present. Boom! An overwhelming surge of blood-red spiritual energy shot into the sky, scattering the dark clouds above. Feeling this aura that far exceeded expectations, a shocked voice escaped Luo Jiutian's lips. EI, 8th grade supreme. Luo Jiutian's startled voice echoed slowly, and in the next moment, his figure flickered as he darted to Xiao side. At the same time, Xiao gaze on Huang Yunpa grew solemn. Well, do you still think you can destroy my blood god great camp? In midair, Huang Yunpa crossed his arms and gazed mockingly at Luo Jiutian and Xiao ahead. Hearing this, Luo Jiutian's previously calm expression turned grave. Behind him, the 22 supreme powerhouses of the Luo god great camp were no match for the 30-plus supreme experts of the blood god great camp. If he personally joined the fray, he might be able to level the playing field or even suppress the opposing supremes. However, the situation had taken a drastic turn. Huang Yunpa had broken through the bottleneck of 7th grade supreme and ascended to 8th grade supreme, catching Luo Jiutian completely off guard. Now, he had no choice but to join forces with Xiao to stand a chance against Huang Yunpa. Yet, even if they managed to contain him, the prolonged battle would inevitably result in defeat for their 20-some supremes. What had once been a battle firmly within their grasp was now completely upended by Huang Yunpa's breakthrough. Luo Jiutian, do you think it's better to retreat with your people or stay and fight my blood god great camp to the death? As Luo Jiutian wrestled with his anxiety over the shift in today's battle, Huang Yunpa's calm voice interrupted his thoughts. Huang Yunpa's words left Luo Jiutian momentarily stunned. Then, his brows furrowed deeply. He hadn't expected Huang Yunpa to offer him an option to retreat, something that seemed completely out of character for the Blood God Great Camp's usual style. Could it be that the Blood God Great Camp didn't want to risk mutual destruction either? Still, Luo Jiutian understood all too well that if the battle continued, his side would likely lose. Though victory would still come at a great cost to Huang Yunpa, Luo Jiutian preferred to take his troops and retreat for now, leaving a path for future opportunities. Even though Huang Yunpa had ascended to 8th grade supreme, his recent breakthrough meant he might not yet have the ability to stop this many supreme experts from retreating. Just as the thought of retreat surfaced in Luo Jiutian's mind, Xiao Yin, who had been silent until now, suddenly smiled faintly. His voice reached Luo Jiutian's ears, causing him to pause in surprise. Senior Luo Jiutian, if you joined the battle at the rear, would the Luo God Great Camp be able to secure victory? If Huang Yunpa hadn't broken through, it might have been feasible. But given the current circumstances, it's not looking good. Luo Jiutian understood Xiao Yan's implication, that he should stall the battle at the rear while Xiao Yan dealt with Huang Yunpa. Under previous conditions, Luo Jiutian might have thought this approach viable. But the current Huang Yunpa was no longer the same as the peak 7th grade supreme he had been before. Everything had fallen apart because of this one variable. If Senior Luo Jiutian has faith in me, Xiao Yan's calm voice spread out as a wave of aura surged from his body, even making Huang Yunpa frown slightly. Then leave Huang Yunpa to me. Xiao Yan's resolute words and unwavering expression left Luo Jiutian stunned, his heart filled with a sense of shock. Can you really do it? Luo Jiutian asked, looking at Xiao Yan in disbelief. Although Xiao Yan had previously blocked one of his full power attacks in the Luo God Great Camp, that didn't mean Xiao Yan could stand against a true 8th grade supreme. If I can't beat him, I'll run. The entire sky fell silent because of Xiao Yan's words. There were more than 50 supreme powerhouses present, but all of them wore faces full of shock. Who could have imagined that a young man, barely a 6th grade supreme, would dare challenge an 8th grade supreme? And at the supreme level, even a single grade difference could mean a gap in strength of several times. In terms of spiritual energy, Huang Yunpa was 10 times stronger than Xiao Yan. How interesting. Huang Yunpa chuckled lightly after hearing Xiao Yan's words. I imagine you're thinking that since I just broke through to the 8th grade supreme and my aura hasn't fully stabilized, you're hoping to take advantage of this moment, aren't you? Yeah, you guessed it, Xiao Yan admitted with a smile. It was true that he intended to capitalize on Huang Yunpa's unstable spiritual energy due to his recent breakthrough. Arrogant. Huang Yunpa sneered at Xiao Yan, his gaze filled with contempt. How would I know if I don't try? Xiao Yan smiled back, then turned his gaze to Luo Jiutian. Senior Luo Jiutian, the rest of the people are yours to deal with. Luo Jiutian observed the determined expression on Xiao Yan's face. Although he still had some worries in his heart, he couldn't be sure whether this young man truly had the means to bridge the massive gap between a 6th grade and an 8th grade supreme. However, right now, he, Luo Jiutian, had brought a large group of people to infiltrate the Blood God Great Camp. If they were forced to retreat now, it would be a complete loss of face. So, instead of running, it would be better to fight and see if they could really destroy the Blood God Great Camp. Of course, whether that hope would turn into reality depended on Xiao Yan. You hold off Huang Yunpa first. Once we've dealt with the other supreme powerhouses of the Blood God Great Camp, we'll join forces to take him on. Even if he's an 8th grade supreme, he can't possibly handle the assault of so many supreme powerhouses at once, Luo Jiutian said to Xiao Yan, who could not refute this plan. This is getting interesting, Huang Yunpa sneered as he overheard Luo Jiutian's words. His face twisted into a malicious grin. Then, a voice that seemed to shake the heavens and earth echoed across the battlefield.